6:01 p.m. I'll call this silence cell phones and electronic devices. Of course, remind everyone that while they're seated, they may remove their masks, but if you are getting up to the building or come to the microphone, to please remember to don your mask for that process. And we'll begin with a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc. Actually, before I do that, I will advise that the Deputy Mayor is not joining us either physically or by Zoom. She's not feeling 100% this evening, so we look forward to seeing her at the next meeting, and that there is at least one member of staff whose back is troubling them, so they may stand up from time to time. It's not meant to be threatening, I don't think. We'll find the same. I saw some wincing out of the corner of my eye, so if people are standing up, it is entirely because of age-related problems. And with that, there's a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that the November 23rd, 2020 Committee of the Whole budget meeting agenda be approved as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Members of council, I'll ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. And I would note that if anything comes up with regard to the cemeteries, specifically the Hilton Cemetery, I'm a member of the board of Trinity St. Andrews United Church, Hilton Cemetery. And I'll have to remember to put that into the actual database. We have no delegations this evening from with regard to the budget meeting and process. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. David Green for the record. The last budget meeting was a bit of an issue. Do you know that you didn't really advance the cause at all, at least not in my mind? There certainly was good infighting and bickering and the desire to reopen all the discussions on capital because some people didn't get their own way. It was a waste of time, money, and energy in my mind. Least the cost is your per diem for the meeting and the staff costs that are involved. There was at least 8 in the room. How did they feel to be here to not advance the cause? In my mind, they certainly don't need the practice of meeting. I'm seeing flashbacks to the previous council, and we had hoped that we would never go back there again. Some of the comments were outright wrong. And taking the Trump approach of saying it often and saying it loudly doesn't make it right. You're going down that road again, the road where you worship the God of cheap. If you think that you've had feedback from residents who believe that they can't afford a tax increase, then you can't imagine the feedback you'll get when you cut services and residents can't get the basic services that we deserve and pay for. That will be feedback. Citizens aren't expected to think ahead. That's your job as our local government, or at least it should be your job. Your function is to plan for the entire population, not just the squeaky wheel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. There are no other citizens' comment. The 3rd, 2020 Committee of the Whole budget meeting be received. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. We move into staff reports, specifically the 2020 operating budget deliberations, first draft. So, Mrs. Whitfield, I'm going to turn the floor over to you to go through the executive summary, high-level bullet points, please. We've all read it, I would hope, and we don't want to go through it, line by line, but high-level bullet points. And then, so staff is aware, my intention will be to go through each.
Thank you very much. On the executive summary, which starts on page 3, Council increase is $94,492. Council had asked us to bring back an operating budget of 0%, and we did so. There were some items that were not included in this draft budget, and you will want to concern yourself with whether we want to reduce some of our service deliveries in order to bring you a 0% budget, or if council would like to add some of these back in. The next thing on the budget timetable, and we are at November 23rd, where operation budget deliberations are essentially starting, not continuing. And we were to do the public presentation. So this week again, which is a Tuesday, to continue with your budget, or if council would like to take a break till after Christmas, when we have more information. So we'll leave that up to the committee for discussion at some point tonight. We had a lot of challenges in building the budget. There were, they're all listed here, and you can see that we had like policing increases and reduction in OMPF. That's difficult to bring you 0% when we have those issues. We've had increases to our external budgets through boards and agencies that then to bring you a 0% increase means that we're further reducing our operating budgets for the services that this municipality provides. But there were also some opportunities. So we still have some modernization funding to apply. We have funding under the Safe Restart, which is really important because we believe that COVID's going to continue for all of 2021, or a majority of it. Our external loan payments were decreased when we renewed the water plant and the community center. And all of the other debt payments that we have built into the 2021 budget were also built into the 2020 budget. So you don't have any increases there, but you do have internal debt payments that are increasing this year. So there is some summaries on your internal and external debt. We don't need to go through that. You've all read through that. Internal, you can see which departments are increasing and why, what you purchased last year and how. The reserves, of course, the schedule has changed since this was produced. So for second draft, we'll bring you a more updated schedule. I did send the committee with respect to the question from Councillor Rowley at the last meeting about next year's revenue in a balance at the end of next year. So we're dipping into the 2021 revenue. With the 1%, we're at 181, and we had 0.46%.
I believe it was 1.81 you mentioned last. Mean to the taxpayer.
So growth numbers yet from MPAC. And then growth numbers, we won't actually know what the tax increase is. And in previous years, it's been somewhere around 230,000. So that means would we could increase taxes by that amount with no.
Which is we didn't make any changes. Is choice with regard to the
will take a stab at this. I'm pretty sure that that Candace would prefer that. Okay. So we didn't actually decrease a lot or remove a lot from the general government budget. What we did do was go through line by line the actuals for 2020, reduce some of the expenditures for utilities, try to start and cancel, come with some risk, to know how utilities are going to use next year. But the other thing that we did do was we increased some of the budgets for interest income is a good example of that. So we increased that by the OMPF actually decreased, so that's causing us a little bit of a decrease in our revenue.
Thank you. And in the budget for 2020, we had a staff position that remains unfilled. Is that correct?
Yes, so we had a staffing position that was going to be shared between the Clerk's Department and Economic Development budget in 2020 for 8 months. It didn't get filled in 2020. We've also put it in the budget for 2021 for 8 months.
Thank you. So that means we couldn't hire this for this position until April. What is the risk to the taxpayer with regard to any service delivery concerns?
With the fire department, we're looking at maintenance and utility expenses were reduced in 2021 budget to meet the requirements of a 0% operating budget. The transfer payments for the SCBA was not done for this year at it was a transfer cost of $20,000 was removed. Also, a reduction in emergency planning and fire equipment expenditures. And so that we have a nominal increase of 0.114% due to increases in gases, fuel, those type of things.
So primarily a reduction in maintenance and utility budgets and a non-transfer to the SCBA fund?
Correct, sir.
Cool. So flipping the page to 17, please. We'll get there when we're done going through. So flipping the page to 17, policing services operating budget. This is really an external budget. Is there anyone who would want to comment on this?
Only that we are using that policing phase-in table from last year, so we're using the policing reserve to keep it down a bit.
Thank you. So Public Works operating budget, page 18. Mr. Parkinson, same question to you. What has been removed from your wants and or needs lines, and what impact in terms of service delivery might it have?
Thank you, Your Worship. So currently the Public Works budget sits at 0.08% of an increase for 2021. And we found those savings and reductions. The first one is tree maintenance. That's been reduced by $120,000 down to $125,000. There's $25,000 in there for adopt a tree program and $100,000 for trimming and removal. I'm comfortable with that budget. I think that'll more than cover our needs for 2021 to keep our roads safe. Sidewalk repairs, that's been reduced from $279,000 down to $140,000. The side effect of that is the prolonged time it's going to take to become compliant with accessibility. It probably moves from 2025 to 2028. Storm sewers was reduced from 508 to 164, and that is realized from a couple of things. We've pushed the Harbor Point, the Marina and Harbor Street watershed capacity issues to the following year or the next year to align with the reconstruction of Harbor Street. That's going to happen in the future. We've gone through all their costs, and quite a few of them are, to be honest, unrealistic and overstated. So we've gone with more of what the operating costs have been for the last year and the previous year. So there was a reduction there. So currently the storm sewer budget includes the Brighton by Pond clean out, urban ditching, facility maintenance, oil and grit separator clean out, and just some miscellaneous funds. So that'll take care of the storm for 2021. The annual transfer to reserves has been eliminated. That's annually 130,000 that usually gets contributed to reserves. That's been eliminated completely. So there's a bit of a risk of an overrun there because we kind of did have an unusual year this year. So our fuel consumption and use could be down. And the hydro rates are all been reduced to the actuals for the last 12 months. So there's a little bit of risk there that we could have a cost overrun. That's pretty much it for the public works.
Thank you. Moving to health services and cemetery operating. Mr. Castleman, same question
Sure,
to you.
I'll jump in here. Not much has changed from a service delivery standpoint. We're all aware that we're active with respect to physician recruitment. We've entered into a partnership agreement with Docs in the Bay. That's going to continue on at $25,000 per year. We're hopeful that we can secure more docs on a go-forward basis. So that service really hasn't changed at all. We see a revision from a revenue perspective. If you recall, last year we had a couple of docs. The bishops decided to return to the Picton area, and as a result of that, there was a requirement for them to pay back $200,000 in medical assistance program. So certainly that revenue was shown last year, and that was offset by a couple of agreements that we entered into with one existing doc and one new doc. Obviously, we've entered into two separate agreements, one with Dr. Gao and one with Dr. Lambrakos, that resulted in some funding going out to assist them in ongoing operations. So we've got some lease agreements that are coming up for renewal in the existing building. A couple of lease agreements we have to renew. I think they expired at the end of the first. So not a lot of changes. Same thing during the grant and aid discussion. There are some miscellaneous cemeteries that we have, 5, 6, 8 of them within the municipality that we've supported. So that really hasn't changed in that regard. So to a large extent, status quo.
Thank you, Mr. Castleman. So flipping the page to 21, Parks and Recreation operating budget. Mr. Miller, same question. What might not be included in this budget?
Right now, we have a decrease of $7,766 or 0.993. The decrease, and basic budget that I have in the past, hoping that they will have a return to normalcy once we get to the summer sports and whatnot. The biggest hit is the reserve, transfer to reserves for the arena. Normally we put 25,000 into it, and we've not put anything into it this year. So basically that amount is kind of taking care of everything.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Turning the page to planning, building, and bylaw operating. This is page 23. Mr. Walsh, same question to you.
Thank you, Mayor. The planning, building, and bylaw operating budget does represent an increase of 14 point drop in revenues associated with external revenues or third-party billings of about $80,000. That third-party billing is other cost recoverables that we normally invoice for external costs of the consultant who would be handling those files. That's expected to be reducing in terms of level of activity, so that revenue line decreases accordingly. There is a slight increase in the revenue side by the council in the new year. Other than those are the main changes. In terms of risk of level of service delivery, we still have a senior planner position to fill. The budget reflects that, and we're ongoing with our search to fill that position. The building budget is some of the revenues that are reflected to date for 2020 may not be totally current. We've had a bit of a flurry of applications, but the number of applications are pretty much on par with last year. I expect that the revenue side of the building will be pretty much in line with last year, and there's really no change in resource levels for that program, that administration of building. But again, we're going to take a look at the building permit fees in the new year. There are some adjustments there that are warranted. There is one large building permit expected sometime before year's end for the new nursing home. So that's going to be rather substantive jump in revenues there. Of course, building permit revenue is very volatile, changes quite a bit from year to year, depending on the scale of one or two applications even. So as the treasurer has pointed out, there's annual adjustments made from the reserves to account for those changes. The bylaw portion of the budget is really, there's no added resource levels there. There's some cost controls made on the animal control expenditure side. But otherwise, the change there is really a result of simply the salary and wages changes and a bit of some training, etc. But otherwise, no major changes to the bylaw portion of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. So we flip to page 26, Economic Development Operating Budget. Mr. Hagerman, I see your budget's down 23%. Are you trying to be a hero?
So yeah, like the budget is down 23.30% as it stands, but that does not include grants and aid, which will be 50 some odd $1,000 back into the budget, I'm assuming. But the other big piece that we don't have in the budget this year is the hotel accommodation study that we completed last year. So that's another 15,000. Well, we budgeted 20,000. We used 15 for that project. So that's another $20,000 that's not in this year's budget. We have left in the 22 grand or so for the environmental assessment to finish up the due diligence on the Memory Junction property. And other than that, it's a large focus on promotional and marketing initiatives for the municipality that just continue our digital presence, our radio presence, and our print media presence.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerman. If there's questions, we will come back. Okay, so you can't go home yet. Page 28, Environmental Services Operating Budget. Mr. Parkinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's really no changes to this budget. It is rate recovery, so there is no tax support on this, but it's largely unchanged with the same level of service delivery for each department, water and wastewater.
Thank you. And thank you all very much for your insights on that. So now let's, members of council, let's flip back to the beginning of the operating budget. And by that, I mean page 14. And we'll start with general government. And I will simply ask members of council, do you have any questions with regard to the budget as it stands for general government? Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Deputy Mayor's in here, through Mayor. Probably Candace or the CEO can answer this one. We were supposed to get an IT person, and for next year, for this year into this year's budget, I don't see it here into the general here, because I think we need one locally.
Mr. Castleman.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. That is not included within the existing budget.
Is that an effort to keep things at zero?
Yes.
Thank you. Is that something you'd want to see on a wish list? We did ask as a council to include it in the budget. Yeah. Well, we have competing interests here, Councillor LeBlanc. We have council asking to put an IT person in and council asking to keep a 0% budget. So it looks like we can't have it both ways. So what we'll do is we'll ask staff to let us know what it would cost to bring on board an IT person or an IT consultant or someone who can be present for IT services here at the municipality. And we can consider that when we come back and deliberate. Fair enough?
Yes, because right now the one that we have remotely doesn't work. When you give them access, it doesn't jive.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Just in fairness to Zycom, it worked when they took over my computer. They managed to fix me up just fine. So, but I do concur. I think it would be helpful to have someone on board. And certainly I think probably there's staff over here who might think the same thing. So, so we'll ask staff to bring back costing information for council's consideration. Anything else on general government? Councilor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. Budget, if there's any training included for staff.
Ms. Whitfield?
Yes, we always include staff training and conference and seminars in the budget for each department.
I'm thinking, Splee, of something that Councillor Tadman and I have discussed with the library board regarding dementia awareness, and wondering if that is something that maybe some of our frontline workers, I don't know how much a training like that would cost. I'm sure if you spoke with the CEO at the library, she could maybe give you an idea. But I really do think in this time, and as we've talked before, we have, significant number of elderly in our community, and I, over the years there have been concerns for some. I'm just wondering if we could look into that and just, I'm sure it's minimal. It's not going to change a lot with the, in the budget, but I'm wondering if we could review that before we finalize this.
So let me ask this, given that there is money in the budget for training purposes, would it be necessary maybe to add a little bit of money for that purpose, or do you think it would just be a matter of shifting focus?
Have to add it.
Okay.
But I also think that it might be something more worthwhile for all staff. And then maybe we can have a facilitator come in and do the training, just a one-day thing.
So I'm going to write down dementia customer service training. Madam Clerk?
Something that we could put under accessibility.
Okay, still need to be added, right? And we'll ask staff to bring forward some numbers with regard to what a consultant might cost. Anything else under general government? Councillor Tadman?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering through Linda, with a lot of the conferences this year are all virtual, would they still cost as much for people to attend? So wouldn't that reduce some of the costs in that area?
Go ahead.
Obviously, there were cancellations and we didn't really do conferences. I just want to see if we reduce that line, because we thought that might be something that we could do. Just when I'm going line by line, sometimes I forget. This is a little bit in the clerk and CAO area. And we did reduce it by $2,000 in the finance area. So we looked at ways that we could reduce the budget based on the current times.
Anything else with regard to
The year after, we're going to have to double up, and that's going to then create a tax increase. If so, I didn't add it all up, Linda, and I don't need an answer right now, but I'm wondering how many dollars exactly were removed from all departmental reserves. How much that would affect a tax increase or decrease at this stage. You spoke during your executive summary that I'm going back to the budgeted amount for new construction that we could probably going a tax increase. So I'm just wondering where those numbers would come up. My concern is if we start taking those numbers away with the fire department, he's going to have to make that up at some point in the 5 to 7 years, and it's going to make bigger tax increases. So just looking for that at some point.
you have a comment?
I do. So I've added up the ones that the transfers to reserves that I know that we took out. They total 240. We've made a stable budget line, so those transfers to reserves really don't add up to everywhere. Where to find a 0% increase, that's why we looked at
we'd have time to buy them all at once. So they'd all be Scott for the employees going at the same time, they'd all be one. So it's a safety issue and also it's a fire protection issue. I think the 20,000 could be put to them. Your training, the right rating apparatus when it's manned to transfer this $20,000 in because it's affecting operations in one of our key operations too much. That's my point of view, my only. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blanc. Councillor Tadman.
Thanks to Councillor Blanc. I was going to speak of the same thing. Anywhere where there's a health and safety issue, I think we should put that 20,000 back in the reserves. And I'm sure there's other areas, not so much in the operating, but in the capital, we can find that money. And despite the fact that we were told earlier that we wasted our time, but I personally don't necessarily think everything that we have in the capital is a need for this year. So I think I have the right to re-examine that.
Very well. Does anyone object to putting, let me say that again, does anyone object to putting the $20,000 into reserve for the SCBAs? So can we add that to the operational budget, please? Thank you. Anything else under fire department and emergency planning or operating? Flipping over to police services, operating budget, any comments there? No, but we do have a choice to add to a reserve to enhancement. We've kind of cued that one already, but now's an opportunity to do so again if someone wanted to. All right, we're moving on. 18. Council.
The in police services. How would we generate funds? Could we do enough money there, or I know that we're running because we use, we're really low on.
Policing service.
But if there's somewhere where we can put something, have a bit of a plan, that plan may show up in a year or two that we really need to do something, at least we'll be part way there. So if somebody has a suggestion, I see Councillor LeBlanc perhaps has a suggestion that what we.
Councillor LeBlanc, but I have to go to Councillor Bateman first.
I'm not sure if it can be directed to Linda. I was going to ask, what would be the recommended amount if you were going to put something into reserve for policing? When you're talking that, what would make a dent in this? Because you see the average increase. So if you put something in, it would have to be above the average increase, or you're not going to save anything to enhance the policing.
I'm finding it you're actually withdrawing from reserves to fund your policing budget.
Right.
So my thought would be, if you want to save some of your reserves, you withdraw less.
Remind council how much we're drawing from reserves. Please. Yeah, here it is. $95,000. Yeah, so we're drawing $95,000 out of reserves in order to keep our police services line at 3.78% increase. So if we wanted to do anything, rather than transferring money into reserve, we would stop that proverbial bleeding and say, instead of 95, let's only transfer 45 out. And then we would still have 50 grand in the reserve account. Councillor LeBlanc.
Here. This is more of a statement. I'll give you a question.
Yep.
The thing is we've, as a council, we have put the bylaws in place so we can have enforcement for trespassing, everything that's been going on. Now, I think it's the time that we give it a try. I don't have a problem with taking an extra 174,000 out of reserve plus the 90 to do it and give it the 1 year try to see if this enhanced policing helps us out to do stuff. So we have the 2 police officers that are dedicated to Brighton for our speeding, to get some control. Course of our bylaw. But the thing is, when you have those police officers dedicated, they'll be in the rural, they'll be everywhere and stuff that we not cat for speeding and everything. We have more control because the mayor or the police board that sits with them can direct them. I think we need to give it a try because we've worked enforcing all our laws and passing them, getting them there for this to enforce. So it's an opportunity to take it out of reserves and give it a try for enhanced policing. I might be by myself, but not to raise taxes, take it out of reserve and give it a try for a year. See what it gives to us.
So I just want to look at the director of finance and say, where would we find $174,000 in reserve?
So council could look at your contingency reserve, but if I could caution you, you would be asking for a change in your contract.
Right.
It wouldn't be so that means you have 175,000 plus every
Perpetually,
year.
yeah.
And so if you withdraw from reserves this year, that 175,000, you've automatically got an $175,000 increase next year.
Councillor Anderson.
I could be wrong, but I recall a conversation we had right here or at council where we did discuss this. I've been on this extra enforcement ever since I've been on council, and I thank you recognizing the need for that. And we have to find a way at some point, whether it's this year, next year, or whatever. But I think we need to move on. And I can't talk about it right now because but also on our bylaws, we're not talking about that right now. I understand that. But when we get to that, that's an area that we may need to, if we don't do this, maybe that's an area we could do something too. But we need to do something now or next year. So, because this community is going to be flourishing a little bit more in the next, when we come out of this COVID thing, things are going to be getting back on stream and probably fast too, I would think. But we need to be there, and things are happening out there, and I don't feel comfortable. You talk about safety. We're lucky right now, but I do have I'm strong on safety for the community. So I think this is something we need to come up with an answer for this. And how we're going to pay for it. Now, sorry, where I started, and I'm sorry I got off track a bit. We were told that you can add on extra enforcement, I thought, if you felt the need arise. We were talking about even the Presqu'île issue this summer. And I think if this COVID thing keeps on going, which it will, but if it's like it was last summer, it'll probably be twice as bad, where folks are coming to our area, coming to our parks, maybe even coming here to shop. But would we even be ready for that? We have one off with the two officers on a weekend or whatever. Are we ready for this type of growth and growth of visitors, growth of concern? So health and safety, let's talk about it.
So if we look at, just to get back to the dollars and cents of this, and I think to answer your question, we do have to reopen the contract with the OPP if we want enhanced services and ask them to enhance our contract. And the $174,000 enhancement gives us two additional dedicated officers to the municipality of Brighton. So if we flip to our reserve 2021 estimated activity and reserves page, which is, sure, you're going to call it page 8. The policing reserve at the end of December will be at $133,000 and change. This budget has us removing we would need to keep 85, give me some numbers here, $90,000 in reserve, which means we could transfer, give or take 40 out for this existing year, which would keep 50% in reserve for an enhancement in 2022, which I think is probably a good idea, and would have us funding the existing contract through taxes at a $50,000, $50,000 level, give or take. I'm big on Councillor Howley.
When be renewed.
We renewed the contract last year, and it's a 5-year contract.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's correct. 2023. Yeah. So next year we will be in year 2 of 5. Edmund.
I don't see how we can justify this rate now. And if we're renewing next year, it's a good time to talk about it. We're borrowing money to pay for our police contract this year. So how do we justify hiring 2 more? I just couldn't support that right now.
So go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I guess that's my concern as well. If we're borrowing already out of reserves this year, we don't have enough next year to get to pay. So I guess my other concern is, yeah, should we be borrowing all of the 95,000 regardless? Because next year we're going to have to find another 60,000, and that's going to be,
just to be clear, we're not borrowing it.
No, but we're depleting the reserve. Next year we're going to have to find 60,000 above the 38 that is left. And once again, that's a tax increase somewhere. We can't keep draining all of these reserves for this stuff. I would like to see us only transfer half. That's where I am. Transfer half out. We're going to add 0.5%. That's 1%, right?
Half of the 95?
Half of the 95.
So 47.50.
What? Yeah.
Is that right? 47,500.
0.5%. Right.
$47,500.
Yeah. I don't care. Round it out to 50,000. I like round numbers too. That gets us closer.
I'd round it down to 40, but that's just me.
Well, it doesn't matter percent.
Right.
The thing about it is next year it's going to be more because we're not have anything in the reserve to help out.
This is operating budget. 45 out, 50 out, 50 out, 45 out.
We have no idea. Well, you have probably a bit of an idea. Would you think with what to when yeah.
And this is based on 2019 building. And so I think 2020 building is going to be a little bit off as far as growth numbers go, but we're looking for 2019 growth right now.
Go ahead.
Which, am I correct in saying, was a pretty good year?
About 200 and some thousand to 230, 240, give or take.
Yeah, I can't guess until I see the numbers.
Yeah,
Sorry.
good for you. That's a very finance answer right there.
Well, yes.
she has to know the numbers, but we get to gamble. That's all good.
Well, she doesn't like to round numbers.
She doesn't. But my guess is it's going to come in over $200,000 for our growth numbers, which we would be offsetting this without ever raising taxes because it would be growth that's paying for the additional cost. Right. So 45, are you okay with that? Councillor Bateman?
I'm okay with the 45. Can I ask one question as
Sure.
well? For that 100 and, what was it, 175,000, 174,000, that's 2 additional police officers. Remind me, what's our dedicated police officers for Brighton now under our existing? 1 or 2?
Yeah. It's 12 or 14,
Okay.
but I don't think it's a round number. I think it's like
So that's
12.75 or
that
something.
amount represents getting an additional 2.
Right.
Okay. Because I think at some point with the growth of Brighton, we're definitely going to have to look at that. But I also think as a council, because we're talking speeding and we all see it on social media and hear it on the streets, speeding, and 2 additional officers will help in a lot of ways. But we're fooling ourselves if we think that's going to eliminate speeding. It'll help stop, catch some. But I think at some point we're going to have other ways like other communities have done, putting in red light cameras, whether it be rumble strips or even, God forbid, radar. But other communities are, because you will never be able to have enough policing to stop the speeding.
I agree. What really stops the speeding is drivers who obey the law, and that's the problem. Well, yeah. Or when a dump truck runs into a telephone pole, that slowed me down this morning. So there you go. Councillor Anderson, 45.
Yeah, it's great if council supports that and we get on with next year really being serious about this. Enforcement does slow them down. I don't care what you say.
Well, in fairness to council, by transferring 45 instead of 95 from reserve, we're keeping $50,000 in reserve for what could very well be a potential enhanced policing budget, and that we could help pad a future tax increase with. So the object is always not, ask the taxpayer to gobble a big contract up in 1 year if we can phase it in over 1 or 2 years.
Absolutely.
So I think that this helps us do that.
I'm good with it. And,
Yeah.
I think if we get a plan, get it down on paper, and away we go.
So council's direction is to transfer from police reserve 45,000 the budget this year. Okay. Any other questions on the policing side? Moving over to Public Works. Questions, comments? Councillor Tab.
Mayor, the one thing that worries me is we know that for 2025, we have to be compliant. And as Preston said, we won't be our sidewalk maintenance. So you've decreased it by 140,000, is that correct? I think I'm reading, yeah.
That's correct.
So can we adjust that or do something there? Because what's happened so far, I know there's a few glitches here and there, but for the most part, it looks like what has been done this year is really been a good improvement. But I'm concerned that we won't be in compliance in 2025. And there you could speak to that, Preston. What would you, in an ideal world, the amount that you have decreased, would that be enough to keep moving forward towards 2025?
Well, the plan we had for 2025, I believe, was $800,000 worth of repairs. So we're hitting it at about 240 a year was our target to be compliant by 2025. So reducing it by half does extend that program.
Go ahead.
Do we have any money left in reserve for sidewalk repair? Because it seemed we put quite a bit in and then we didn't get a lot done last year and then we added more this year. I can't remember amounts now.
Ms. Whitfield?
So Preston's budget shows actually that he's reduced his budget for 2021 actually down the 60,000 because of reduction in sidewalk. No other monies in his reserve right now for that.
So, but your budget took two dings with regard to sidewalks, if I'm reading this correctly. One was $140,000 for expenditures on sidewalks in 2021, and one was not transferring money into reserve for sidewalks for 2021. Am I reading that right? Or am I offside?
There was in 2020. We had some other reserves to get. I think that we discussed and were under the impression that a lot of that contingency money in the past was the sidewalk work that wasn't getting done. And so council decided to take some of that contingency money out over a few years actually and enhance that maintenance program for the sidewalks. This year we haven't done that. So that's totally up to this committee to, you know, but the budget was actually reduced down to 60,000. So I think that that's important, even though 80,000 of it is carryover from the previous year. I believe that's awarded work.
A portion of that is about 60,000 to be committed for next year of the 140 that we currently have in the budget.
Councillor LeBlanc.
To you, Chair. When I read page 3, you use a number of 140. It says reduce sidewalk maintenance programs from the recommended 300,000. So that's 240,000, not 120,000.
Right.
140,000. But when it comes to accessibility, we have to meet that deadline, and we're getting off on a good foot this year. And I know we got a good contractor that won the bid. Hopefully they get the extension. I think we should keep on going at the same rate we're going. We shouldn't be falling behind because we don't need our citizens tripping and falling, and we got a lot of maintenance that needs to be done. So for accessibility, for our seniors, for depth perception, I have a rough problem when it comes to health and safety and
Well, for risk management and to have a nice community. You know, I think our citizens deserve that too. So, Councillor Tadman.
And how many $5,000 deductible payments do we have to make to our insurance policy?
Councillor Tadman.
I was looking for it when I had my hand up. So what is in the contingency fund right now, the reserve fund? How much? And as I understand it, that is for things such as this.
Yeah, so the contingency reserve is actually established through previous year's surpluses that are brought into the reserve, and then it's used to offset deficits in years where you may have a deficit. But it's been building. And we've been using it though at the same time, and we've already applied 50,000 in this budget from the contingency reserve. But yes, it's there for you to use for this type of project, or
to do what Preston had planned for sidewalk repairs from the contingency then.
So that would be drawing $140,000 from contingency? $240,000 from contingency?
Well, if we don't keep up and we get to 2025, we could easily be facing all kinds of fines for not being compliant. So we're going to pay it now or pay it later.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, either we $500,000 out next year, right?
That's the and the thing with contingency, why not do it now?
Councillor LeBlanc.
Through your chair to the Director of Public Works. At the last meeting, when we were going to add extra work to you, you said that you would need an additional staff. If the extra 240,000 is put into the budget for additional sidewalk work, do you have the staff to supervise it? Do you need additional staff?
With the contract we have, the work they've done, we've had an extension for next year. No, we would have no problem at all with that contractor spending the $280,000 that council is proposing. And it will require inspection for hours or whatnot, other than the norm for testing and watch pores and that sort of thing. So we could utilize that existing. Something we have.
Mess. I don't think it would cost that much to do it.
Well, actually, those plates are really expensive. So we have to take some off and try to straighten them because the garbage trucks apparently keep driving on them. That's why they keep getting concaved for reasons I don't understand. But we have to do some maintenance anyways of those drainage structures so that they can drain to the ditches. So we can take a look at that same time staff are out there.
Perfect. Yeah, because it doesn't look good at all if you've noticed on Harbor Street.
Sorry, the garbage trucks are driving on the sidewalk of Harbor Street?
That's what the reports are telling me.
Great, thank you. Councillor Rowley?
I see your writing. I'm sure that
Yeah,
will
don't
go
worry.
to that will go to the county and to the contractor. Those are things that they should be responsible for. We need to get a bit hardline on some of this stuff. If they damage our stuff, it needs to get paid for by those who damage.
We need more than anecdotal evidence, though.
I'm sorry?
We need more than anecdotal evidence.
Well, it's,
You know what I mean?
I get what you mean, exactly, but, you know.
But I will certainly reach out to the county and advise them that this is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing, so.
It's either that or Telephone Road.
I'm talking to them about that too. Councillor Tadman, you had your hand up. Did you already have your say? Perfect. Perfect. So, Councillor Rowley.
So I want to go off sidewalks. I'm glad to see we're getting lots done. I would like to talk about the hydro budget for streetlights. I know several years ago we had much more energy efficient streetlights put in. Has that worked in Austin? I know with Codrington, when they put the solar panels up, they kind of created a reserve with savings that they did. Have we done the same thing with the streetlights here?
Ms. Whitfield?
So no, yes, first of all, yes, it was a good program to replace the streetlights. We've accomplished great energy savings out of them. They're not metered. So it's based on the type of light that's in there and then hydro assigns a cost, and that's the hydro we pay. But it has been a good program that way. But no, we have not had any, we didn't take that savings and transfer it to reserve. We took that savings and used it as a tax break for our taxpayer.
You're welcome. I do want to circle back to sidewalks. Did you want to go on to something else?
Nope, sidewalks.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to stress, I'm in favor of continuing on with the sidewalks. I think they've done a great job. Preston and I talked about that, and hopefully we'll sign on for next year. I don't think we can fall further behind. Just accessibility. There's still some sidewalks that are rough. I don't think that's something we can, fall further behind. We're still playing catch up. So.
Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, I want to make sure that I fully understand what council's intentions are. I get it that you want to enhance the level of, I understand that. And I understand the whole idea about AODA and trying to be compliant. I have those straight in my head. So $80,000 that were the existing budget within your operating budget money to enhance that even further by 200 or 220, 240. So we're going to spend $380,000, 300 plus what's being brought forward. Comprendo.
So go ahead, Councillor Tadman.
I thought that Preston said that we were going to do about 240,000 a year. That was the plan to get in compliance.
Yes, our plan to get compliant with accessibility only was for the next 3 years at about 280 per year.
Oh, 280. Okay,
Yep.
then
And
300,000.
then there's also other sidewalks that are in
Yeah.
terrible condition.
I'm
that
not going to argue about the 20 then.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you. I have a fantastic memory. I remember that conversation because it shocked me. Preston, when you got to think, you said you were going to spend 320,000 for the next 3 years to 4 years to bring us within compliance, minimal accessibility compliance. And that's embedded in my head. I
There you
don't
go.
remember that. If it's 280 now, that's great. But at the time, it was, it was a number off the top of your head. It was 320 to meet the minimal accessible standard for 4 years. And that was one of my, it was probably back in March. Our first year.
I don't remember the number exactly, but yes, and council spent money on that since, so
Right.
we've refined it, and plus the students did a complete assessment this summer, so everything's been quantified.
Thank you. So let's circle back to the $240,000. And I just want to know from members of council as we go around the table, do we want to take that entire amount of money from contingency? Or do we want to split that between contingency and tax support? And I'll start over with Councillor Tadman.
I would prefer to take it all out of contingency this year.
Councillor Bateman.
I would prefer all out of contingency, but I don't want to drain all those, so I would like to split.
Split it?
Yes.
Don't drain it.
You want to split it 50-50? 50-50. Councillor Anderson.
That's my intention too, is to split it in some portion.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Again, my memory serves me. The previous councils put a lot of money in reserves and it wasn't spent. And we started doing the sidewalk. So I'd like to take it out of reserves. Thank you.
Councillor Rowley.
I'm all, whether it's half and half or whatever, but I don't think we should take it all out. I think some things need to be paid for at some point, and I'd like to see it all done magically without having to spend money, but it's not going to happen. So I'm at least for some out and some under tax support, but those numbers will show up at some point, I'm sure.
Thank you. And I would agree with the 50-50 split, at least for now. So perhaps when we get our second draft budget, we'll see what that looks like from a Councillor Tadman.
Just once again, could I ask our director here, what is in the contingency fund? It's 800 and something thousand.
At the end of 2021, and what we've already budgeted, it will be 886,579.
And that's what it's for.
Right. And to cover any deficits, which we may very well find ourselves in if we carry on down the road we're talking about today with, the real numbers for hydro and fuel. We don't know what that's going to look like in 2021. So we should be cautious with the contingency fund as well. Anyway, everyone comfortable with that? Anything else under public works? I talk about brushing and ditching, making sure we're maintaining our standards there for 2021. Has anything been taken out is my real question, I guess.
No, there's been no service.
Thank you.
Ditch.
Okay.
Equipment was close to 400,000. And last year we put 120,000 dollars with the contractor.
Those lists were handed out to the council. I can't remember off the top of my head what the
64
lengths were.
kilometers.
But we're not done either at this point in the year, especially with the weather we're getting. I'm not sure if everybody's waiting for a response. So I just pulled it out here. It looks like we did about 31 kilometers so far this year, and that's lane kilometers, so 64 ditching kilometers, which is pretty good considering we didn't get the brusher up and going till probably almost August.
Does that include or in addition to the roads we reconstructed and resurfaced in the rural area? Thank you.
Sorry, it includes all the roads that we did for surface treatment.
Okay. Any other questions under Public Works? Go ahead.
Why wasn't it operating earlier, Preston? When did we actually receive it? Because it doesn't seem like many kilometers, considering when we contract out, we get 4 times as much done.
Mr. Parkinson?
Well, we did the contracting in the spring and the summer of the previous year. And yeah, I can't remember the number offhand that they accomplished, but it was in the documents that were submitted to council last year. But we took the excavator showed up late, and then we had issues with the brusher unit, so we had to accept a smaller unit so that the excavator could drive it and power it adequately, and it was safe to operate and that sort of thing as far as boom weight goes. So it took a little while to fix all those bugs, and then by the time we had it going, we were fully into surface treatment reconstruction. So we only did those roads with it, plus some ditching. And then in the fall, they got going on the brushing.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to follow up, and it's not to attack you or anything else, and this was all because of Councillor LeBlanc thinking we needed that machine. And so is it worthwhile, I guess?
Yes, because we got 64 kilometers of ditching done this year, or sorry, of brushing. We didn't have a spring season into that, so that's pretty good. So next year, once the snow dies down and the weather's, and we can start brushing from, and then they can go back around once the snowbanks are gone and then fine tune the ditches and clean it up. So it'll be a much faster process and probably double the production for the year.
So economically, it's better to have this new machine, and I don't even, but this new machine is much better or better than to contract out, because we have to think too of the operators and what it costs to have an operator all the time for that.
Use, except we have greater control over what we do and when, so you're not at the mercy waiting for anybody anymore. And the staff time to run it, it was already included in the operating budget, so there's really no increase there. It's just better utilizing staff and our resources and the equipment.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was to our benefit. Thanks.
Go ahead.
To Mary Chadman, Councillor Chadman, through your chair. Yes, it is very beneficial, quite substantial savings. The unit will pay for itself in over close to 3 years, and we will have it for another 20 to 25 years. And all those years will be tax savings to this town from contracts, from ditching, culverts, and eventually doing sewer and all kinds of different repairs and emergency repairs once they get the hang of it. And it will save us a lot of money. And it gives Public Works a lot of flexibility.
I'm very glad that you got elected. Is it something that we have to repair all the time? Because it sounded like as soon as you got it, you had to repair it or do something. I don't understand machinery, so I wouldn't know.
No, the brusher that we wanted to put on it, and they said would run it, the hydraulic system on the unit can't. It doesn't have enough flow to power it. So you could get into situations where you're powering the head and then you could lose drive and arm control. And then you could do damage to the machine. The smaller units, a 3-foot unit, requires a lot less, so it's more versatile as far as how they can extend the boom and how they can work the boom as far as distance from the road and that sort of thing. So it's a more versatile unit for the size of the machine that we needed. No, it's not a lemon.
It's not a lemon. Nicely done. If there's no objections, we're moving on. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Sorry. One question. The transfer to reserves of 130,000. Wondering what the plan for that 130 is. Is it to offset something farther down the road? Once again, I'm concerned that if we don't kind of bank up for a rainy day for sometimes, that we're going to fall behind again next year. That's $130,000 next year that we haven't got. I'm just wondering if there was a plan, Preston, for that 130 without having to look through this whole executive summary. Thank you.
Mr. Parkinson?
That's just a yearly reserve that gets put to the operating budget to replenish the reserves. For the term effects of that, I'd have to defer.
Sorry, I was just
Not
going
at
to
all.
the spreadsheet.
I knew what you're doing.
So we are using that reserve partially for engineering, but we transfer in at year end for projects that were not completed at year end. And so it looks like a bigger depletion than it actually is. We transfer in at year end for the engineering, and we transferred in at year end for sidewalks. There were a few other projects that were not completed year end. So it's not exactly the way it appears. I'll find that number and I'll email it to council, the amount that we're planning on transferring into that public works reserve at the end of 2020 to be used for projects in 2020, and I'll send it by email.
Thank you. That was my next question. Will we know before we complete the budget as to what the in-transfers are for some of these reserves?
So finance generally brings that report to council in December, so I'll be doing so.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Through your chair to Linda Whitfield, the Director of Public Works, and hopefully it's not the same question. Basically, when I look at the road maintenance, was supposed to be 245,000, reduced to 125,000, and 130,000 is going to be transferred into reserves. That 130,000 that's going to be transferred to reserve, is that the same 130 that you were looking at?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's just transferred.
Yeah, the 130,000 has been eliminated for 2021 in the current budget. So there's a reduction of the roadside maintenance budget, which is the 245 you referred to. So we've lowered that down to 125. So that's inclusive of the tree, adopt a tree program, and tree maintenance and trimming. And then the 130 reserve transfer to reserve has been eliminated so far.
Yeah.
So it's not included. So the $130,000 transfer won't happen.
Won't happen, but it says here, removal. I see it right now, yeah. I got the removal for transfer into reserve. Okay, thank you.
We're going to carry on.
I got it. It says removal.
Flipping the page to health services and cemetery operating. Any questions or comments with regard to either of those items? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Not a concern with the budget itself, just something that I have heard out in the public. The doc by the bay. My understanding, and I don't even know if it's true, that one of the doctors that was hired, and I think they're working out of Quinte, had put on that they wouldn't take Brighton patients. Is that accurate, or?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've heard the same rumor. I don't know if it's true.
No, I don't.
I do know that once we recruit a doctor, we don't get to tell them how to operate.
Yeah, I always thought they went by the telehealth or the not
Yeah, but
telehealth, but the sign.
they can tell Healthcare Connect.
Yeah.
They can direct Healthcare Connect of what level of care they're looking to bring on, and they can choose their parameters when they're uploading their patients. It's their business at the end of the day. So And that would be true whether we use Docs by the Bay or had our own committee recruiting or didn't do anything and just sort of hoped for the best. These doctors get to decide how to operate their own clinic businesses. Anything else on that one? Councillor Rowley?
Just making sure that we are not lowering the standard of service delivery at the Health Services Center with the big $56,000 decrease.
Mr. Castleman?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. The quick answer is no. As I mentioned to you, we have two contractual obligations to Dr. Gow and Dr. Lambrakos. We're continuing to support the YMCA as we have in the past. And the existing rates are still in place, so the rental rates have not increased. Having said that, we will leases come the end of first quarter, so not sure what's going to come out of that, but for now, we've left the rates as they are.
Do you have a comment?
Also in the healthcare budget, the hospital donations as grants and aid were not included. And so that makes it look like a decrease.
Yeah, but those will pop back in there next draft. Anything else before we move on? Flipping the page to Parks and Recreation operating budget. Any comments or questions on that budget? Jim doesn't have any questions. That's good, Jim.
No.
I'm happy to hear that on
One
so
question.
many levels. Councillor LeBlanc.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I apologize for that, Chair. Mr. Miller, Director of Parks, pickleball courts. If this gets awarded, will the pickleball courts be built early spring? So we don't look at like the skating board park trying to be done in the middle of the winter and the frost?
Although that is a capital project, we'll let you answer that question because I feel generous tonight.
Well, the hope through you, Mr. Mayor, the hope is to get the tender out early and hopefully with luck, they'll have an early build and we should be able to get them out there in June. So yeah, the answer is hopefully we won't be building this time of year. I guess that's the answer. The tender is going to get out as soon as we can.
Councillor Anderson.
Question regarding that $100,000 funding that just was announced for recreation. Is that in anything that would be planned for the next budget, or is it something that would be used this year? It's a provincial $100,000 that this area, that Brighton's getting for recreation.
That Brighton can apply for. Getting.
I presume we're going to apply.
Mr. Castleman.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the quick answer is, are we going to apply? Absolutely. Are we going to be successful? That's yet to be determined. What impact is that going to have on next year's budget? Hard to know. But we will apply and try and offset some of the projects that we have in place within the 2021 budget. That's a discussion for Linda and Jim and I for a second round of operating budget for your consideration in the next month or so.
I just say it clearly states that $100,000 for Brighton.
Right, but the Green Fund clearly stated $2.6 million for Brighton,
Well,
and we didn't get that. So they categorize these things, and then you have to apply.
Let's hold them to something. Anyhow, good.
Good luck. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim, I see that you are making transfers to reserve. Is there, but if I understood you correctly when you were speaking earlier, that you are lacking some money to transfers? Or did I just
Mr. Miller?
not hear you correctly?
Yeah, the arena, 25,000. We are not putting transfers into that, but we are putting transfers into the community center, harbors, Parks General Reserve, and trails and boardwalks.
And the
So-
25,000 then for the transfer to the arena, what does that affect? Is that for a future build? Is that why we're socking money away, or is that for? equipment repair at
Yeah,
some point?
it'd be future capital projects. So it could be equipment, could be, anything that we consider to be capital.
Anything else under Parks and Rec? Councillor Bateman?
The outdoor rinks are under capital, and I think we're all in agreement. That's something we'd like to have. But if we went ahead on that on the capital side, do you have it captured in here anywhere, Jim? If we can't get the volunteers to maintain these, that would affect your operating budget, right?
Mr. Miller?
It's in capital.
No, for your operating. If you put in the arena, you'd have to, if there's not volunteers manning it, have we incorporated that in the operating budget?
The question, okay, so the question was, if we can't get volunteers, have you considered operating costs? And you have not.
I have not, because I assumed everything was going to be a volunteer
Your,
idea. That's
your operating
came
plan
with
includes the use of volunteer labor. Thank you. So there is a risk there.
that and our own staff that we have right now.
Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I'd like to, if not tonight, but before we pass the budget, reconsider the 25,000. I know that there is some dated equipment in the arena that at some point we're going to have to pay for. I think we had that budget early, or that conversation during our capital budget, correct? So whether it's tonight or at some point.
That now, we can go around the table and see who else thinks that's a good idea. Councillor LeBlanc?
I kind of like it as it sits right now.
So do not include it. Councillor Tadman? No?
Not this year.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman?
Not this year, no.
Councillor Anderson?
We probably can forego it this year.
So I would be in concurrence with you, Councillor Rowley, but we don't have the support of council, so we move on.
Thank you for your consideration.
Everybody okay if we move on to planning, or is there something else in Parks and Rec we want to look at? Moving on to planning, building, and bylaw. Are there questions, comments, things we'd like to see? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you again. I would like to direct this to Mr. Walsh. You and I have had the conversation regarding a community improvement plan and was wondering how that would fit into operations. Is that something that we would require a consultant, or is that something that can be done in-house? I don't expect it to be done maybe all of next year. I'm sure it will take some time, but I really see the benefits, having discussed this in previous years regarding maybe certain funding and grant programs that at some point could maybe help move some of the economic development projects. I don't know, maybe this is something that would work in tandem with Mr. Hagerman, but I would just like a kind of a cost at some point to consider. Thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
Through the mayor, thank you for the question. Yeah, CIP programs for brownfield in particular are very useful program. I think we have about half a dozen sites that might benefit from redevelopment if there was maybe a program to support the incentivizing of the redevelopment. Yes, the policy work can be done in-house, and yes, the manager of economic development then administer that program depending on how it's been fashioned. But I think the thought is that manager of economic development then do the implementation side of it. So yeah, it can be done in-house. We'd have to decide what kind of upper threshold budget we want to put to the tax deferrals and other forms of incentives, because these things do have to be made up in other areas of the budget. But in terms of getting the program going, yeah, we don't need a consultant to do that.
There be significant costs to either your operating budget or the budget for Mr. Hagerman?
Operator capital cost of actual funds used to incentivize the developments of the brownfield sites. But depending on how much that is, and the director of finance might have another spin on that.
Does Mr. Hagerman have a thought?
Mr. Castleman and I, and now that Mr. Walsh has been on board for a few months, we've had discussions about a brownfield CIP. We believe between the three of us, there's enough knowledge in-house to construct this program and not have to use a consultant. When it comes to actually divvying out successful applicants and getting them their incentives, I believe we would, if we don't have anything budgeted this year, but if we did get the program up and running, say at the halfway point of the year, late in the year, and we did have a successful applicant, there is other forms of funding we could potentially draw on, such as modernization, things like that.
Thank you for that. Like I say, I don't expect to have the whole complete plan this year, but I would like to see something going forward. And if it's something that can be done in-house without a great cost to consultants, maybe it's something we can talk about when we talk again about our strategic plan at some point.
Would be good to see some forward momentum on that. Did you have a comment, Mr. Castle?
Through you, Mr. Chair. My only comment is that much experience with respect to the use of CIPs and brownfields throughout different municipalities across Ontario. The bottom line is we'll put together a policy for your consideration probably in the first couple of quarters of 2021. And at the end of the day, the incentives are budgeted by you. So if you want to put $50,000 towards a program or $80,000 or $150,000, the choice is yours. So you can make the program as big or as small as you want. That's down the road. We'll get the policy in front of you for your consideration in the not too distant future.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman.
For Mr. Walsh, thank you, Mayor. The actuals for consulting were 358, 386 in 2019, and they've dropped to 275, 339. Is that contributed to, well, of that 275, is that mostly to DM Wills, or what percentage of that would be to DM Wills?
Through the Mayor, that would be pretty much all DM Wills there, that number.
And I know we just renewed the contract, and they're working on to finish off several files. So at some point, that will be weaned off. And I know at one time we're much further to a full complement of staff now, so we should be using less and less consultants and more in-house, would we not?
My understanding is we're still sending files to DM Wills, and that's entirely because we have yet to hire a senior planner. That makes it sound like it's somebody's fault. We have yet to find a senior planner to hire, I think would be a better way to say that.
Well, some is new files. It's not finishing off full files. New stuff is being sent as well.
That is my understanding. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Are the wages for the senior planner already considered in this budget?
They were considered in last year's budget, so yes. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the Director of Planning. The GIS program that you're purchasing from DM Wells for $7,000, is it something that they'll use and we'll use? Or once we wean ourselves off and we do hire a planner, it's something that we'll keep? And so, double loaded question here. When you look at these plans and all the reports that have been done by previous councils, is there anything in here to go look at some of these waterfront plans that we have for development and that we looked at in the past that can be looked at for future things that's in your budget to look at? Because there's a whole bunch of money that was spent by previous councils with consultants to do waterfront plans and different plans in this municipality that should be taken off the shelf. Is there anything in here that you're looking at when you do the master plan that you're going to be presenting, supposed to be presented the 15th of November, but maybe the 15th of December was supposed to come out? I know you got a grin, so do I. Thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
So two questions, one regarding GIS, one related to the secondary plans. To the first question, DM Wills had compiled the new official plan and zoning bylaw, and in particular in this case, what we're talking about is a mapping for them. And they indicate to us that they did extra work outside the scope of the contract without any change orders and this sort of thing. And so there's extra cost to acquiring some of the deliverables that would presumably would have otherwise been included. So I'm having that argument with them. And so hopefully we'll get that in our hands. And then we'll be able to put that information up in a good GIS format on our own website and that sort of thing. So on the second question, all the background reports that have been done historically, then they'll be all made available to the awarded consultant in doing the secondary plan. So that those reports, the studies will inform the secondary plan. And so the secondary plan will be a bit of a roundup of those specific functional reports.
Go ahead.
So 2 questions. On the program from DM Wills, if they bought it and we paid for it, I agree with you that we should own it and we should have $18 that's been allotted for the secondary plan. It's also going to look at all the previous old reports and combine them all together, like the water trail studies and the stuff that's been done for everything, like for Gosport and the different areas, so we can connect this to the town to make it a more easily accessed town.
That's correct.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. I heard you say, Paul, that we're having maybe a lot of income coming into the planning department with the nursing home. Is that correct? And where is it going? And on your update, Mayor, it said a seniors resident.
That's what he's talking
and
about.
I live in a seniors residence, I guess, because so I just want to know, is it a nursing home or a senior residence?
I think he's referring to the seniors residence on the west end of Main Street, but Mr. Walsh.
That's correct, Mayor. And the revenues I'm alluding to is on the building permit fees side.
Yeah.
I'm expecting the revenue side of the building budget to have a bit of a late uptick. So we have some design drawings in, for example, but we have to finish off the site plan for it, make sure that's finally registered before we can really act on the building permits. So we have some of those technical details to work out.
Right. I think I would like to be clear. I don't know if anybody else wants to be clear, but is it a seniors home or a nursing home? Because a seniors home, most people still can function on their own, but a nursing home, you get the extra nursing.
Mr. Walsh.
To the Mayor, this is an interesting project in how they've integrated 3 things: early retirement living, assisted living, and a bit of a nursing care program as well. So
it's a 3-tiered.
I guess you could call it 3-tiered, and they've consulted with some knowledgeable people in how to design the building and have the building work for those 3 programs, which can be kind of tricky, but they're very optimistic that they've pulled that off. And my first observations, it's going to be a very high quality development and something Brighton can be proud of.
So that's Mr. Mysick's up at next to Len's RVs?
It's on their land, yes.
That's correct.
Is it he that's building, or am I to know that yet?
They won't be building. No, they've got a commercial contractor.
Okay.
Whom I can't remember, but I know they told me the name. I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
Anyone else? Councillor Bateman?
Just under office supplies, I know I'm not worried about the $1,500 for a desk, but it does generate a question for me. 2-part question, or 2 questions really. Where do we currently get our office supplies? Do we outsource that locally, or wherever you get the best deal? And then the second part of the question would be, us along with the other municipalities, there's 7 municipalities plus the county, that's 8. Do we all have individual procurement, or do we ever reach out? Like we're asking for a desk here. How many other municipalities are asking for the same thing? Like if you combine 7 municipalities, we might be purchasing the same type of stuff, and their purchasing power would be far greater, and the savings for all municipalities would be.
Ms. Whitfield?
Thank you. So we do have a procurement. Each municipality has its own procurement policy. They are all, we all took Northumberland County's procurement policy and adapted it to fit into our spending limits and that type of thing for this this municipality, which is much smaller, obviously, than the county. So we follow our procurement policy. So something that's over $2,000, then we would go and get our 3 quotes, or over $1,000, sorry, go get our 3 quotes. And then we would choose from there. That's the proper way to purchase. We also purchase with Northumberland County for a number of supplies. We have provincial pricing on our cell phones. That's through the county program. We have provincial pricing on, there's various things that we purchase through. I'm sorry, I just can't think of them all right off the top of my head. But we do partner with the county on a number of things. They'll issue sometimes some tenders or RFPs, and we'll be allowed to piggyback on them. That type of with the county on a lot of things, and with the other municipalities on a lot of individual items. As far as buying desks and finding, like, do we find local suppliers? Yes, we do. And we ask for quotes from our local suppliers when we're looking for this type of goods. I know that the store downtown supplied us with all of our staff chairs when we changed our staff chairs. So this is something that we need to make sure that we're including them in our request for quotes. That's all.
Go ahead. Would the same apply on the capital side? So you look at our capital budget and there was a lot of debate around trucks. It doesn't matter what department they're for. All the other municipalities would be purchasing vehicles possibly as well. Is there any opportunity there with the purchasing power? Like if we needed a truck for Parks and Rec, and then 6 other municipalities were purchasing trucks, I think the purchasing power, I don't know if that's possible, or is that something that they can look at, or?
Ms. Wedefield?
So what we found in that is that specs are different. So when the county's ordering trucks, they're ordering to certain specifications, and our Parks Department needs different specifications than our Public Works Department needs. And so each individual truck is built differently, and so it becomes more difficult. But I do know that that the mechanic actually writes all of that up for us. And so it's kind of consolidated in our municipality. So we're purchasing a few pickup trucks like we did last year or the year before, if I'm not mistaken, Preston. Then we were able to build those tender documents and purchase more than one vehicle and generate savings that way.
Councilor Rowley?
Can I go into bylaw?
Yeah, you can go anywhere under the heading planning, building, and bylaw.
Right.
So go right ahead.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we were speaking earlier about enforcement and maybe enhanced policing. And some of the concerns were because we only have a single bylaw officer. I don't know how cost effective it would be, and it's maybe something that staff could consider, that if we can kind of maybe complement our bylaw department by maybe a contract position or something to help with some of the enforcement regarding parking and those kind of things. Just a
So
consideration.
some of the more proactive things we can do with bylaw enforcement, like parking, for example.
Yeah. Thank you.
We don't know what that would cost. Is it council's wish to ask staff to find out what the cost of an enhanced bylaw enforcement would look like? Go
Would be
ahead,
cheaper than
Councilor Anderson.
OPP, sorry.
I've just noticed other communities around us have increased their enforcement of bylaw officers and increased their, but also you could look at a 6-month contract or something during a season or a time. I was using Proctor the Parks as an example next summer. What happens? We talked about call out, how much it costs for a call out for our bylaw officer to go out if there's a situation. Well, the cost just to go out for one visit equals a few days pay, you know. Perhaps we could use a part-time, I call it part-time because it would be a part-time contract type thing, a 6 months contract for enforcement officer perhaps. So I'd like to see the cost on that. If you're going to do a cost on a full-time, let's see what a 6-month contract made of October or something like that in a prime time. Yeah, I know winter parking, but I don't know. I think seasonally, our bylaw officer is probably fairly busy at certain peak times of the year. Not really rode with them, but I would think that there are times that it's a peak time. And if there's certain things that we need, property standards we've just worked on, a lot of things we've just been working on that might be falling into his lap now that we don't want him to get behind on any of that. So let's look at maybe that's one area we can look at.
So
increasing.
Is that a long way to yes?
What's that?
Was that a long way to yes? Yes, you'd be in favor of staff bringing back some numbers?
No,
Just-
I'm not at all. Yes. I did say that in my
I know.
my deliberation. I
But
said
then you
I'd
kept talking.
I like to see a 6 month and
Okay.
a full time and a 6 month.
Very well, thank you. Anyone else want to comment on this? We should know what council wants to do.
I
Councilor
think
Tadman.
it can be briefer. Are
The
we
health and
having a
safety-
problem, CAO, keeping up with bylaws enforcement?
Mr. Castleman.
The quick answer is, I don't think so. I think that we have to decide as a council and a community how proactive we want to be on bylaw enforcement. We've chosen in the past to have a level of service that says basically we're going to do bylaw enforcement on a complaint basis. If council wants to move away from that and enhance the level of service from a complaint basis to some more proactive basis, whether it's on parking, cannabis, priority or property standards, that's the level of service that you have to establish. We can staff it accordingly and bring in a half-year contract or half-year person as you want. So it's all about service levels and what kind of service levels that you want to have. The bottom line is we could have 5 bylaw enforcement officers and we could be very proactive and go to each and every property, and I'll guarantee you we'll find something. So it's a balance, and sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, depending on what kind of feedback that you get from the community.
So your short answer is no, it's not really.
The short answer is based upon complaints that we received, I don't see a tremendous backlog.
So Mayor, my answer would be not now.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman.
I think with or without COVID, you might want to look at an enhanced short-term contract because Brighton population is the greatest in the summer months. So, and most of it, everything is complaint driven, but the parking issues that we saw down at Presque weren't really complaining that just happened. And, that might happen with or without COVID now that everybody knows that beautiful Presque is there that maybe have never come down before. So even if COVID is not here in the summer, I think you're going to see an uptick in visitors to Presque, and that's where you're going to see the parking enforcement, and that's not really complaint driven. It is and it isn't, because if somebody's driving or Alan's driving, he doesn't need a complaint to. So you might have to have more, because what percentage does Brighton's population swell in the summer? Permanent residents or seasonal residents? And I think Councillor Tadman said the park superintendent said they had 100% increase. So it might be something you have to look at or consider for the spring and the summer.
So that was your very long way of
That's
saying.
a very long way of saying, yeah, sure.
Let's look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody else took a long time. So. Yes, I am. But
Councillor LeBlanc, it's your turn.
Just say yes, Doug.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Well said, Mark.
I feel like I cut you off, Doug. Okay. So I'm hearing that the majority, I would agree with the yes statement. And so I'm hearing council would like to see what the numbers would look like for an enhanced level of bylaw enforcement. So we can consider that at the next draft. Councillor LeBlanc, you're up.
Yes, I have a question for the Director of Planning, Mr. Walsh. The last meeting, I asked you questions on the field sites, and you gave me an answer. There was 5, and one not completed. And this is for the zoning and the bylaws. So the 5 of them, when you look at them, well, there's really 8. They're all over 200 cubic meters. And anything over 200 cubic meters, the town should be collecting $2 per ton for everything that's dumped. And if you look at one specific one, that's over on the west side, just in that one pile that's still going on now, it would be close to $80,000 to $100,000 to the town's coffers. So we're looking here at money, but we got to look at our bylaws to get enforced on these fill sites that aren't being done, like on Telephone Road and other ones. So I just want to know where your answer is on why we're not enforcing and using our bylaw and collecting that $2 per ton, which would probably be about $140,000, which would help us on a lot of costs right now. It would also help the planning department on some of the losses. So,
Any comment, Mr. Walsh?
Through the mayor, one, I think we're going to take a revisit to that bylaw and just see the nuts and bolts of it, make sure it's working in a practical sense. 2, don't think all those revenues are available because there are a number of other exemptions within the bylaw. My understanding is when Lord Trent gives a fill permit within its regulations, that exempts it from our bylaw. So a lot of revenues aren't available from that respect. So I can look further into your question and delve into those details.
with the one on the Lower Trent gives the fill permit. It's along shoreline or stuff. This is not shoreline. This is where there's actually fill being brought into the municipality or moved from one property to another property that's not under the same zoning and not under the same property. They're separate tax bills. So that would invoke the bylaw. So that means it's over 200 cubic meters. So we should be getting, or 2.4 tons per cubic meter. Basically, we should be getting $2 per ton. And you're looking at about $140,000 to $160,000 that we missed on revenues this year because it wasn't adhered to.
Thank you. Anything further on planning, building bylaw, Councillor Anderson?
Just a quick question, perhaps to both you gentlemen. Doug, that $2 per ton, is that, when you say that Lower Trent gives a permit, does that mean they're charging for the permit and they're collecting revenues?
No, the one permit that he's talking about is if you bring in fill, you're infilling to bring back your shoreline or get your shoreline and protect your shoreline, or using to go on a wetland. It's totally separate. This is when you're moving fill from an excavation project to another one.
I'm sorry, that's what I'm referring to.
Or no, they don't get $2 a ton. You just pay for your permit and got to have engineering fees. You do it. The one that we have a fill bylaw that if you're moving fill and you're controlling fill, anything over 200 cubic meters, basically you have to get the fill, the permit, the license. You got to go to the town, pay for everything. Got to get the engineering report, and you got to know what your volumes are, and that you got to pay the town a royalty of $2 per ton for everything that you're moving. That's what it says in our bylaw. And I agree that he should revisit it. Because if you really look at our fill bylaw, you can't even go, and he can agree with this, you can't even bring sod to a new property and put sod on that property because now you've brought something that wasn't native there. So you got to look at the definition that's in the fill bylaw and read all the definitions. Am I wrong on this?
Well, hang on, don't answer that. It has nothing to do with the budget.
I just wanted to know about the $2.
So we heard you say you're going to revisit the bylaw. We look forward to seeing that at a future council meeting. Thank you. Councillor Tadman.
Yeah, just, excuse me, just to follow up on that. So would that be coordinated with the planner to invoice that or her department? The $2 per ton?
Whose department?
The planning and Linda's finance department. How does that work? Or
how does the application of the fee work,
Yeah.
Mr. Walsh?
Sure, there's an actual application fee which covers the cost of administrating the bylaw and things like enforcement, but there's also the per tonnage rate that's there to act as a security, essentially making sure that the quality of the fill is as per how it's been tested and is assuring us that the parameters of the it's meeting the provincial parameters for quality soil. And if it's not, then we have that deposit to have some recourse.
Dollars. You were saying Every ton is $2.
Is that the $2 per ton? That's part of the application fee?
No, it's kind of a separate amount apart from the application fee itself.
So how is the $2 per ton applied and invoiced? How do we deal with that?
I don't have a lot of experience administering this bylaw. I'd probably have to call on the bylaw enforcement officer who drafted it and has been administering it to get all those answers.
So perhaps we could have just sort of some background information on that for the next budget meeting from a revenue standpoint.
I can answer that question.
Well,
I don't know. That's not your
$100,000 is good
job.
stuff.
Yeah, no, that's why I think we should have that answer for the next budget meeting. Councilor Bateman?
I'll ask Mr. Walsh because the other stepped out, so hopefully you know the answer. It'll affect the budget when we do it because I think Mr. Kassman indicated they're undergoing the review of the development charges. Do we know when that will take place and be finalized? Because I think there's a lot of things in there, and I think others will agree that we're way under where we probably should be. So if there's a timeline that you know of, if not, that we'll ask Mr. Kassman.
Mr. Walsh, do you know when we're planning to go out for, or maybe Ms. Widefield knows the answer to that?
So we've advanced the capital budget. So we're waiting for that resolution to get to council so that it can be deliberated and hopefully passed by council. Once that happens, then we're going to get tenders out. So as soon as possible.
So there you go. As soon as possible. They need council direction out of the capital budget, so we're waiting on that. Anything further under planning, building, bylaws, etc. Moving on to economic development. Questions or comments from members of council with regard to the economic development operating budget? Councilor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. On page 27, Ben, it's a small amount, $2,500 in branding and initiatives. This will be funded by a transfer from reserves. May I ask which reserve that's coming from? Because I don't believe economic development yet has a reserve line.
Believe that was taken out of our consultant fees line. It was there's, I don't know what the right terminology would be, but basically we didn't use all of it. So we decided to come from there and put it into a line item that we hadn't used in the past.
One more question.
Go ahead.
Regarding Memory Junction. I need to go to somebody else. I forgot my question.
Mr. Hagerman did mention during his highlights that Memory Junctions was included in here for the site assessment. Be nice. Repeat it.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it now. Yeah, okay. It's been put back into the operating budget, so property, blah, blah, blah.
That whole project got pushed. Got COVIDed and
Yes,
pushed off.
that's right.
We did complete, if you can think back to February, pre-COVID. We did complete a structural assessment, and I did to council, I want to say late February, early March. And it was revealed that the structural integrity of those two buildings was quite sufficient. It's just, there's a lot of cosmetic work in there.
Anything else under economic development from members of council? Moving on to environmental services operating. Questions or comments from members of council? Councilor LeBlanc.
Through you, Chair, for Director of Public Works, is there any cameraing? I don't see the thing for continuing. the cleaning and cameron do.
It's in the maintenance budget, I believe it's 150,000 that we allocate towards the camera work and the repairs that we find during that camera work.
Any other questions on environmental services? Councilor Bateman?
No, but I was going to ask, we can go back to bylaws. I just,
Yep,
I had
go ahead.
When we talked about the increased traffic down at Presque Isle and the results of what came with that, was that like we had to put the signage up and increase patrol? Alan was out there more often. Were we able to use the COVID funding for that because that was a direct impact from COVID?
Ms. Whitfield?
Anytime that our staff are doing work that's COVID related, it gets flagged on their timesheet that way. And then those wages are expensed back to the COVID expense account. So yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The only reason I ask, and hopefully COVID is still not around by then, I want to be optimistic and try to believe that it's going to disappear. But if we're in the same boat next year, we're in different phases or colors now than the others, I think we would seriously have to look at that, especially if the COVID funding is there. I think we should look at it even if it isn't, but definitely if it is, because we will have that same problem again this summer.
Right. So do you want to include something in the budget for that?
Well, I think they were going to come back already with the cost of having the 6-month contract. So I'll be interested in seeing that one way or another, whether it's coming out of the COVID money or coming out of where we have to take it out of. I think it's something we have to look at for sure.
So we'll just wait and see what that contract pricing will look like. Councilor LeBlanc. Your microphone, please.
I think it would be through you, Chair, for Public Works and Parks and Rec, is that last year we didn't get any students. I know we got COVID. And I want to know if we're going to apply this year.
That would be for the summer students, Ms. Whitfield.
Yes, so we did apply this year and we did students. We did receive some funding at a summer jobs and reduce the transfer from reserves for policing and increase the sidewalk budget maintenance and remove from contingency reserve for half of that. And we're currently at a 3.82% budget increase.
3.28 budget.
82.
That's overall, that's capital and operations and
That's
everything
everything.
that we've spoken about, which is not a tax increase at this stage.
That's correct. It's not your tax increase because we don't have growth.
Right, we don't have growth. Okay, thank you. It will probably, once those are all calculated in, and I'm not a financial person like yourself, my guess is that the tax increase will be less than the 3 point whatever you just said, correct? Okay, thank you for that.
Has to be less, yeah.
I guess.
Unless we had negative growth, which we did not.
Which we know we did not, yeah.
So we had positive growth. Therefore, your tax increase will be lower than your budget increase.
Yes, thank you. So I guess my comment comes down to a concern that I've had right from our first budget meeting, reading through the executive summary. And once again, it was mentioned tonight, I believe, by Linda regarding service delivery. And you eliminated the comment on page 1 or 2 initially, status quo of service delivery, and now we're speaking at reducing service delivery. And I don't feel that whether it's this council or we tie the hands of our staff, that we cannot lower the standards of service delivery. So a small increase in taxes, I think, is worth at least keeping status quo. But I really do feel that we need to improve our service delivery. And that's not to challenge or what's the word that I'm looking for? This isn't about staff and what they are not doing. However, I do really think that we need to increase the level of our service for our community. And so a small tax increase, I think we need to stay there.
Councillor LeBlanc.
I have a question, but first I'm going to reply to that.
All right.
The thing is that I'll ask the CAO. CAO, have we laid anybody off? Have we reduced anybody's hours or anything of all the staff that we have in the town of Brighton right now? I think we've added staff. So how is we reduced, if we kept the same staff and all the same hours and we paid them, where's the delivery service going to be with the staff and not being there?
Yeah, so through Mr. Mayor, certainly as a result of COVID in the spring, we did an assessment or completed an assessment of the potential risks associated with loss of revenues. And my recollection is at risk was plus or minus $375,000 or so. That's not the exact number, but plus or minus. In any event, staff came forward with a game plan related to reductions and or holding off of filling of staff positions. Students was one, as you recall, and filling of certain positions that we did not go ahead with, whether that's the public works foreman position as one example. So we quantified that $375,000 in potential risk, and we made some adjustments in staffing to a similar tune. So this year, or next year, sorry, 2021, we're trying to go back to similar numbers that have been authorized in our organizational structure. We're going to be hiring the students once again. We're hoping to fill out staff. We're hoping to have a senior planner as soon as we can. Quite frankly, once we do that, I think we're going to be able to save money from a consulting perspective. We're talking about IT and perhaps turning our mind to the IT service. So pretty much trying to go back to status quo and maintain the service delivery that we've had in the past as best we can. Part of the challenge this year, and you're seeing it in the ongoing discussions, is that reserves are being hammered as a result of trying to maintain or trying to have a balance between maintaining service levels and coming up with a zero tax increase. And it's a bit of a balance. We've tried to be very cognizant of service levels and maintaining service levels, because I think that's what we heard from council. You wanted to, you're concerned about the existing minimum service levels that we provide and really didn't want to see a dip in them. So we've come forward with similar services that we've provided in the past, reduced reserves and some maintenance cost at the end of the day to come up with a 0%.
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask my question now on environmental service. I'll come back to that. But my question on environmental services to the Director of Public Works is your modeling studies in this budget. So if you come with your modeling study and you're going to look on Pinnacle Street for moving the water resources into the industrial park, would that be in this year's budget or a following year's budget?
Mr. Parkinson?
Through your worship, in this in the capital budget, you've approved $490,000 for water model initiatives. We don't know exactly what they're going to be at this point, but there is money earmarked for some projects that are going to come out of that water model study.
Okay. Anything further? So we've asked staff to bring back some information for us. We'll get a second draft based on what we've discussed this evening. we'll get some options with regard to IT services and enhanced or potentially enhanced bylaw enforcement. We do have a meeting scheduled for next week on the 1st of December. I guess I'd ask, is that enough time for staff to provide us with those two items? It probably take longer than that, So
I would prefer
my
more
advice
time.
then would be, let's scratch next week off of our budget list, and the Director of Finance and the CAO will communicate with the Deputy Mayor, who chairs the budget meetings, and come up with our next meeting schedule. Is that fair enough? Go ahead.
It would be good to have the growth assessment too before we have another meeting, because we really don't know where we're sitting. And you said that comes about the middle of December?
Yeah, usually mid to late December. So I don't know the date yet when Impact will have that available.
So likely our next budget meeting will be in the new year.
That sounds good. This may not, well, it does have to do with cutting corners. We had, I think you and I are both on council, maybe Emily was too, but at one point they put GPSs in all the vehicles. Does anybody ever check them? I've never ever heard of them.
Go ahead, Mr. Perkins.
Through your worship, yes, every piece of equipment owned by at least, well, no, it's in parks too, by the Brighton contains a GPS unit. Some are different. Some are just location and time and speed. Others are plow up, plow down, sander off, that sort of thing. But every piece of equipment in our fleet has a GPS unit. And yes, we check it generally when we get complaints about speeding or, claims of somebody was here, that sort of thing. So then we'll check it then, but we don't monitor it at all.
So, which is good, because then it protects us if we have an insurance claim. And, say our driver said it wasn't my fault, and yet I wasn't in that area or something. In cases like that. So I'm glad that's happening. But a major complaint I get is that employees are, especially at noon hour, are driving our vehicles home as far as Stony Point and other places. And I don't think, especially even with the swing bridge not open, and didn't have to wait, I don't think I could drive to, and maybe I don't speed, but I don't think I could get there and get back in a half an hour. So that's a lot of mileage over a year and a lot of gas. And I'm not the only one on council that has been told this, because others, I'm not going to name anybody, but others have complained to me about, and that's just one area. It's the same with when they're working in the rural area, they come into town to eat. I've said it before, what's wrong with thermoses and lunch pails? Because that's a lot of staff time that we're paying for people to just come from way out in the north end of the municipality into town to have a Timmy's. So, and that's at break and lunch time too. And I think there's a lot of ways we can cut costs. And I haven't really, you must be getting different complaints to me. For the most part, I think the citizens feel that they are serviced.
May I respond?
Sure.
It's not about the level of service now, but the concern with staff is reducing the level of service. But I don't think we can reduce the level. The level of service we have is good, I'm sure. I don't hear a lot of complaints either. My concern is when staff make the comment, going to see a reduction in the level of service. That is my concern, because then we will start hearing more complaints.
Well, it would be my concern too, but so far I haven't seen anything that that's going to be cut to cut our services.
So my statement stands. Let's get the second draft together. Let's get the two extra pieces that we were looking for in terms of dollars and cents back. we'll get staff to communicate with the deputy mayor on a call for a future budget meeting, and I think we'll call it a night unless Councillor Bateman has something earth-shattering to bring to
Well,
us.
not earth, I just wanted to clarify what Councillor Blanc asked on the water modeling study. Did you say that does include the bulk station so that it may move, may not move, or is it depends on the study?
It depends on the study. So it could identify anything and maybe something we're not aware of that might take precedence over moving the bulk water station. Precedence over being the bulk water station. Be a connecting main from Ontario to the Applewood subdivision, or it could be any number of things. But yeah, we just tried to earmark a chunk of money to look after those initiatives that come out of that and the recommendations that come out of that water model study.
Go ahead.
Chair, to Councillor Tadman's remark on the GPS systems on the vehicles. I've used that very effectively with citizens that complained that the trucks. I contacted the Director of Public Works. He gave me the full sheet with the town. I went to see the citizens from most of the places, and they weren't speeding. They were putting the salt down. When they said there was no salt, they were putting the salt down. It's all there, very well recorded, and it put a lot of stuff to bed. So now when they call me that they're speeding, I said, you got to look at the size of the trucks. I can get you all the information, but you're going to find that the one was very well justified.
Do you want to comment on that?
Or if I want to comment on that, but I don't recall providing any information to the councillor on that.
You did.
Especially any kind of print-offs. I don't recall that at all.
Regardless, if
But-
a citizen complains to a member of council, that member of council can either direct the citizen to call you for further information, or can reach out to you to find out if there is a concern on a particular street at a particular time.
That's correct. And we've received a number of complaints from council and the public, and then we go in and look at the data to see whether or not.
You were kind of new at the job at that time, so you probably forgot. You're probably
Okay,
overwhelmed.
we're moving on. We're moving on. Unless there's anything further budget related, I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that the November 23rd, 2020 Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting adjourn at 8:20 p.m. Yes? Oh, pardon me. Don't vote yet. Don't vote yet. I should look at my agenda, I guess, eh? So we now move into question period. If either member of the public has a question with regard to an item that was on our agenda this evening, please come forward. And that's none, but thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So now we move into adjourn. We have no in-camera session. Now we move into adjournment. I've already read the motion. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed?